McQuestion, for over 28 years talking about things that matter with people who care. Production of McQuestion is made possible in part by individual viewers, supporters of the Foundation for Responsible Television, the Hatton W. Sumners Foundation, helping to educate the public about the fundamental principles of their democracy and thus be in a position to help formulate public policy. Moss Adams LLP, certified public accountants and consultants, providing industry-smart tax, assurance, and consulting solutions to help businesses and their owners succeed since 1913. The University of Texas at Dallas, creating the future.
Do you get tired of seeing screaming mobs marching in protest of one thing or another? Do you get tired of watching 6 television pundits yelling at each other or speak so offensively that you change the channel? Well, if you answered yes to either or both questions, then this program is for you. We're going to visit with a couple of radio hosts who think they found an answer to the lack of civility in dialogues over political and other controversial topics. Joining us via Skype from Iowa is Steve Putney. He's a 40-year veteran of broadcasting and marketing as a consultant and sales trainer. He's currently with Pritchard Broadcasting in Iowa, where he directs news coverage for 7 stations. But he's joining us as the producer and co-host of Men in the Middle. Welcome, Steve. Are you here?
I am with you. Pleasure to be here.
Good. Love that Iowa sticker in the back as well, 1952. So glad to have you. Your co-host is sitting here with me. His name is Jim Patrick. And Jim Patrick has... well, I started to say a checkered background. I'm not sure checkered is right. Let's try this.
Could be.
All right. A writer, a founder of think tanks, a political scientist focusing on domestic and global socioeconomic trends, and as a veteran broadcaster, a co-host of Men in the Middle, of course. And as if that wasn't enough, you worked with us in the very beginning of the McQuestion program as a consultant. So there we have it.
Right out of your kitchen.
Right out of our kitchen is right. Absolutely right. So welcome to the program. So what is it that you are doing? What is this Men in the Middle thing? And let's put up their graphic number 4 to show what their logo looks like so everybody will know what graphic number 4 looks. Here's their logo. Clowns to the left and jokers to the right. You look like the clown in the picture. So what is it that you guys are doing and what prompted you to do this?
Well, Steve and I have known each other since about 2006. The fact of the matter is we've never met each other in person. But we've had many debates on the phone, and one day we were having such a debate and he said, we ought to make this into a TV show, a radio show. I said, nobody wants to hear us. He said, yes, they do. We're talking about something different. So immediately the old song that was clowns to the left me, jokers to the right, stuck in the middle with you, came into mind. And we said, we can tell a story here that talks about the story behind the news versus all the snark that's in the news. And very similar to your approach, we're trying to talk to people that know. We have about 300,000 listeners worldwide, mostly on podcast. We're also in Burlington, Iowa, and Willimantic, Connecticut on broadcast radio, and expanding rapidly. And we have a large following. In fact, one of our largest followings, believe it or not, is Russian. The Russians love us. I just wonder if they're going to be coming soon.
The Russians may be coming, but are you involved in the Mueller trade? Are you involved in trying to find out if President Trump was involved with the Russians and collusion? Is that part of what you do?
I don't do that, and I had no knowledge of Watergate either.
Okay, good. You knew none of that. So, Steve, why did you team up with Jim? I mean, you guys have known each other. What prompted you to think about putting this thing on radio and podcast?
Well, as Jim said, we began just having a discussion amongst ourselves. And after spending years in broadcasting, it occurred to me that we were discussing something that you weren't hearing on radio anywhere, that you weren't seeing on television anywhere. We were talking about what was going on, but we were talking about it, I guess you would say, with a more common sense approach. We weren't to the left, we weren't to the right, and we were asking the question, why is it the way that it is? And so the obvious thing to me was, you know what, there's a need for this. There is a place in the marketplace for this where people in the middle can have people talking to them versus preaching at them.
Well, from your standpoint, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you and Jim didn't necessarily agree on everything. I mean, it wasn't that you guys were holding hands and singing Kumbaya. I think you had some pretty incredibly difficult discussions about some issues along the way too, didn't you, or not?
We have had some very heated discussions between Jim and I. We have had some disagreements. We've gotten mad at each other. The nice thing is about having a 12-year friendship is we get over it. But we recognize that there is a place where you have to sit back and you have to listen to the other person's side. Whether you agree with it or not isn't necessarily the issue. It's listening to it. And every once in a while, it may change your opinion on something, or they may share something with you that you hadn't thought about. And again, those differences that we have, I think, is what actually makes the show work. If we were in unison with everything, then we would just be more talking heads. But we actually have disagreements on the show, and we don't hide them from our listeners.
Well, it seems that you can disagree without being disagreeable. That seems to be an art form today too, doesn't it?
It seems to be something, Dennis, that people have lost. Everybody is yelling at everybody. Everybody's getting mad. Everybody's getting their feelings hurt. And there is, I guess, a line where you start calling names and you start getting snarky, where maybe you should be called out on it. But yeah, having the discussion and having rapport, having the ability to sit and listen to another side and not be offended by it, and understand that they have a right to that opinion, whether you agree with it or not, they have a right to that opinion. And again, that was something that we wanted to bring to America and actually the world through podcast. Was here's an example of the way that we should be comporting ourselves.
All right, Jim, what kind of guests do you do? What kind of topics do you cover? Give us some idea.
We have many of the same guests you see on CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and all over the broadcast networks. Now, we generally don't talk about the things that they are talking about in the news, but we go back one step and said, what happened? What happened with you in this? We've had Chris Whipple as an example. We've had the author of The Gatekeepers. We've had, everybody's seen Richard Painter. He's been on 3 or 4 times. We've had Dennis McQuistion on. That one didn't, it worked out great.
Yeah, right.
But we try and inject humor where there normally isn't humor and get people to laugh about themselves and cut up. Now, Steve and I don't always agree, but most of the time when we don't agree is when he's wrong.
I got it. But at least you can laugh about it. And that, I think humor is a lost art in politics, isn't it? Or am I missing something here?
It is a lost art, and that's why political humor sometimes cuts through the chase. Steve and I come at this thing from 2 different vantage points. I got to tell you, in the last election, Steve called it. I'm a political scientist. I totally missed it. He called it. He knew exactly what was going to happen because he was listening to the heartbeat of the street. And I was out there doing statistics because this was